In the City Council's District 2, there's a range of pressing concerns, from traffic safety and congestion in South Boston to racial profiling in connection with the coronavirus. To tell us how his office is responding is the district's City Councilor, Ed Flynn. Thank you very much for being with us, Councilor.
It's good to be with you, Chris.
Councilor, of course, your district includes the South End, Chinatown, and Bay Village, and of course, with the coronavirus causing concern and some maybe hysteria as well, what are you hearing about the district?
Well, I'm hearing a lot of comments from residents asking what exactly is happening, but we're working closely with the City of Boston Public Health Commission, Chief Marty Martinez. In fact, we have a community meeting tonight at the Josiah Quincy School at 6 o'clock, and we're going to highlight, provide some information both in Cantonese and Mandarin in English about exactly what the medical situation is in Chinatown and throughout the United States as well, and precautions that residents can take to prevent the coronavirus.
Are these precautions any different from what we would normally do to avoid catching the flu?
They're very similar, but it's important to know that there is a strong virus that is in our country, and we want to get as much information as we can, and residents want to ask questions to the appropriate city and public health professionals, city and state public health professionals. We have one of the best city and state public health professionals in the country. They're doing an excellent job. But my job as a district councilor is communicating with my constituents about what information is available to them, especially language access, communicating in Cantonese, communicating in Mandarin. I have 3 women on my staff that speak Cantonese and Mandarin fluently, so we're on the phone all day talking with residents, communicating with residents, whether it's through social media or over the phone or through the email. I'm spending a lot of time in Chinatown to be very visible and present in talking directly with residents as well.
What about the effect there? I mean, let's say restaurant business. Is that affected in any way, you think?
It is. Unfortunately, the restaurant business is down since the coronavirus. But it is important that we don't turn on the Chinese community. Now is a time to unite our city and unite our country, treat our Chinese and Chinese American community with respect, with dignity, with empathy, and not discriminate against anybody. I know there have been cases of that we've seen or read about on social media, but Boston's an immigrant city. Boston treats everybody with respect and dignity. I know we will continue doing that, but I'm going to be working closely with Mayor Walsh and with Chief Martinez to make sure that our residents in Chinatown, there's also a Chinese community in Charlestown, in Alston and Brighton as well, and throughout the Fenway area. So we want to make sure residents have the most updated and accurate medical information on the coronavirus in ways to communicate with the city, especially if they don't speak English.
Now, and this disease has been confirmed in a number of different countries, even though the epicenter is still the city of Wuhan in China. But, in people's minds, there is the stigma, and sometimes maybe a young person thinks it's a joke. They say something to a classmate. They don't take this seriously, but how does that affect the classmate who's in the receiving end?
I think it hurts the classmate. I think it's a put down. It hurts them, and it has an impact on their self-worth at times. And when we see a crisis like this, it's about coming together and providing empathy, providing respect, showing compassion. It's not a time for jokes, or it's not a time for division or separating people or criticizing people. We as a country are better than that, and that's what it's about, is providing love and compassion to people that are in need, and never turning your back on someone that's in need. That's the part of government that I like the best, is we're here to help people that desperately need help, and I'm glad and proud to represent a large immigrant Chinese community. I have a Somalian community in my district, a large Puerto Rican community as well. I think I have the largest number of residents living in public housing. So it's probably one of the most diverse districts, a large immigrant population. And so our immigrant community has made tremendous contributions and sacrifices to our country. If you look at the Chinese that built the transcontinental railroad along with the Irish, the Chinese helped build that railroad, and when it was finished, you didn't see one Chinese person in the famous photo there out of Utah. And after that railroad was built, the United States enacted anti-Chinese immigration laws to ensure that reduce the number of Chinese coming into the country. So there's been a history of anti-Chinese American sentiment in our country, and it certainly needs to be addressed.
This is BNN News, and we're talking with District 2 City Councilor Ed Flynn. Councilor, you also have more reasons to be concerned about traffic in South Boston, pedestrian safety problems, and you want a master plan to deal with this. What would that do that hasn't been done before?
I want to see a master traffic plan that there's so many development projects that are taking place all throughout South Boston, and one project impacts another part of South Boston. For example, Mary Ellen McCormick will soon be developed. So what happens at Mary Ellen McCormick or the Bayside area down towards the Teachers Union, that impacts Old Colony Avenue, and there's development on Old Colony Avenue. That impacts L Street, and the proposal on L Street, the Boston Edison project, has a major impact. So they're all connected. We just have to make sure that we think about all of these projects, short-term projects, long-term projects, and make sure that we have a traffic plan that addresses people coming in and out of the area. But even more importantly, Chris, it's pedestrian safety, making sure that our residents are safe, our persons with disabilities, our elderly, parents walking their children to school, workers getting the bus. Pedestrian safety is a top issue that I've been focused on, and a lot of it has to do with making more infrastructure changes. I want to see the speed limit reduced, but even more importantly than reducing the speed limit, enforcing the current speeding laws, which we are doing now. We had an Operation Crosswalk over the last week in South Boston. Several hundred people were ticketed, and that strict enforcement of our traffic laws is critical.
In the most recent pedestrian injury, which I think was in December, there was a woman who was struck on Day Boulevard. There had been, I think, infrastructure improvements to make it safer, but the driver allegedly was looking at a cell phone. I mean, what do you do about that?
I think there's also, Chris, a public awareness campaign that I'm working with the City of Boston Transportation Department on, and it's educating drivers and pedestrians on the rules of the road. I think it's critical that we provide this information. A lot of people, unfortunately, don't know what the rules are. We do see a lot of pedestrians crossing not in the crosswalk, jaywalking, and we need to re-educate our drivers and our pedestrians on the rules of the road.
Thank you very much for being with us.
It's good to be with you, Chris.
District 2 City Councilor Ed Flynn.